Hey Titans, welcome back to the Ultimate Titan channel.
It's great to be back.
You guys are awesome.
Always a pleasure.
We really appreciate all the support and love that you give us.
Yeah.
You won't believe what we're going to dive deep into today.
I know, I'm excited.
It's literally earth-shattering.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued.
Get ready to rumble Titans, because today we're diving deep into the world of earthquakes.
Ooh.
We're going to unearth some surprising facts, shatter some myths.
Ooh, I love busting myths.
And you might even learn a trick or two about staying safe when the ground decides to, well, you know.
Do the jitterbug.
So buckle up and get ready for a tremorific ride as we uncover the mysteries beneath our feet.
You know, it's easy to forget sometimes that our planet is a living, breathing thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes it lets out a little tension, shall we say.
Okay, so let's unpack this. What exactly is an earthquake? I mean, what's going on beneath the surface to cause all that shaking?
So imagine the Earth's crust, like a giant jigsaw puzzle made up of massive pieces called tectonic plates. These plates are in constant motion,
Really?
albeit incredibly slow motion.
Gotcha.
And they interact with each other at their boundaries.
So it's like a slow-motion demolition derby down there.
Well, not exactly a derby, but definitely a lot of pushing, pulling, and grinding going on.
Oh, I can imagine.
When these plates diverge or pull apart, it can create rifts and valleys.
Okay.
Think of the mid-Atlantic ridge running right down the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay, so that's diverging. What happens when these plates decide to, get a little too close for comfort?
That's when things get really interesting.
Yeah.
When plates collide or converge,
Right.
they can buckle and fold, creating massive mountain ranges.
Wow.
The Himalayas are a perfect example of this kind of tectonic tango.
That's really cool.
Formed over millions of years by the Indian plate crashing into the Eurasian plate.
Wow. I never thought about mountains that way.
Why?
Talk about a long-term relationship, but what happens when these plates aren't pulling apart or crashing head-on, but kind of sliding past each other?
That's our third type of boundary, transform boundaries.
Right.
Here, plates grind against each other, building up incredible stress. The San Andreas Fault in California is a classic example.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a massive scar on the Earth's surface where two plates are constantly trying to slip past each other.
Oh, wow. Okay, so whether they're pulling apart, smashing together, or doing the side shuffle, these plates are creating some serious tension. Is that what ultimately triggers an earthquake?
Exactly. It's all about that buildup of stress, and when that stress finally exceeds the strength of the rocks, it's like snapping a twig.
Oh, yeah.
A sudden release of energy sends out shock waves that we experience as earthquakes.
It's mind-blowing to think about all that power beneath our feet. But how do scientists actually measure the might of an earthquake?
We use two main scales, the Richter scale, or more accurately, the moment magnitude scale,
Okay.
and the modified Mercalli intensity scale.
Okay.
The moment magnitude scale measures the energy released by an earthquake, kind of like its raw power.
Okay.
The higher the number, the more powerful the quake.
So if my coffee cup rattles a bit, that's
Oh.
a low number. But if my house starts doing the twist, that's a high number.
You got it, but here's the catch. The Richter scale is logarithmic.
Okay.
This means a magnitude 7 earthquake isn't just slightly stronger than a 6, it's 10 times stronger.
Wow.
And the energy it releases is a whopping 32 times greater.
Whoa, that's a huge GE difference. So an 8 is like 100 times stronger than a 6?
You're catching on quickly now. The modified Mercalli intensity scale focuses on the effects of an earthquake at a particular location.
Okay.
It takes into account things like how much the ground shakes damage to buildings,
Oh, okay.
and even people's reactions to the quake.
So it's more about what we feel and see on the surface, while the Richter scale is about the energy unleashed below.
Precisely. One measures the force, the other measures the impact.
Makes sense. Now let's tackle some earthquake myths.
Yeah.
I feel like there are a lot of misconceptions floating around out there.
Oh, there are like the idea that earthquakes only happen near volcanoes. While volcanoes can certainly shake things up, most earthquakes actually happen along fault lines.
Okay.
Those boundaries where tectonic plates meet.
So volcanoes aren't the only culprits.
It's not even close. And speaking of culprits, another myth is that earthquakes are caused by volcanic activity.
Right.
While magma movement can trigger minor tremors, the real driving force behind earthquakes is the movement of those massive tectonic plates.
Okay, so volcanoes aren't to blame for every rumble we feel. What about this? When can scientists actually predict when and where an earthquake will hit? I mean, do they have some kind of earthquake crystal ball?
I wish it were that simple.
Right.
Unfortunately, pinpointing the exact time, location, and magnitude of an earthquake is still beyond our capabilities.
So no earthquake alarm clock just yet.
Not quite. We're still working on cracking that code. You know, there's another myth that's particularly pervasive,
Okay.
especially in certain parts of the world.
Yeah.
The idea that earthquakes are more likely to happen in certain places like California.
Well, California does have a bit of a reputation, right?
It does.
Is there any truth to that, or is
Yeah.
this just Hollywood hype?
California definitely sits in a seismically active zone,
Sure.
but earthquakes can happen anywhere where those tectonic plates are doing their thing.
Yeah.
Remember, the Earth's crust is in constant motion,
Right.
and those plates don't care about borders or state lines.
So just because you don't live in California, you're not necessarily off the hook.
Exactly. Earthquakes can and do happen all over the world. For example, the New Madrid seismic zone in the central U.S. has a history of some pretty significant earthquakes.
Okay, last myth for now. Is it true that small earthquakes can actually prevent bigger ones from happening, like a sort of seismic pressure release valve?
That's a common misconception. While smaller earthquakes do release some stress, it's not a guarantee that a bigger one won't follow. Think of it like this: even if you shake a snow globe gently,
Right.
it doesn't prevent an avalanche if the conditions are right.
So even if we feel a few tremors, a major earthquake could still be lurking around the corner.
That's the reality, unfortunately, and that's why preparedness is so crucial no matter where you live. Speaking of preparedness, you mentioned the Richter scale earlier.
Yes.
Could you give us a simplified rundown of what to expect with each level on the scale?
Yeah, that'd be really helpful.
Absolutely, but keep in mind this is simplified.
Yeah.
And real-world effects depend on a lot of factors. So on the low end, earthquakes between 1.0 and 3.0 are generally too small to be felt by most people. They're happening all the time.
Wow.
But it's like the Earth is just whispering.
So it's like the Earth's subtle way of saying hello.
Exactly. Then from 3.0 to 4.0, earthquakes are often felt but rarely cause damage. You might feel a little shake or hear a rumble, but it's unlikely to knock anything over.
Okay, so things start to get a little more noticeable.
Yeah.
What about when we bump up to 4.0 to 5.0?
That's when we start to see the potential for damage. A 4.0 to 5.0 earthquake can cause minor damage to buildings and structures, especially those that aren't built to withstand seismic activity.
I imagine things escalate pretty quickly from there.
You bet. From 5.0 to 6.0, we're talking about moderate to severe damage in populated areas. Buildings can sustain significant structural damage.
Oh, wow.
And there's a real risk of injuries.
So those are the ones we really start to worry about.
Definitely. And once we hit 6.0 to 7.0, we're in the realm of strong earthquakes that can cause widespread damage. Buildings can collapse, roads can be damaged, and unfortunately, there can be a significant loss of life.
That's terrifying, and I'm guessing anything above 7.0 is catastrophic.
Sadly, yes. Earthquakes measuring 7.0 or higher are considered major earthquakes, and they can cause immense destruction and loss of life. These are the ones that make headlines and leave lasting impacts on communities and entire regions.
Wow, it's really sobering to hear that laid out like that.
I agree. It underscores the importance of understanding these events and being prepared for them.
Well said. Now, when we think about historical earthquakes, some immediately come to mind the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, for instance.
Ah, yes, a magnitude 7.9 that caused widespread destruction and fires that ravaged the city. It's considered one of the most significant earthquakes in U.S. history.
And then there's the devastating 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami.
A truly catastrophic event, the earthquake itself measured between 9.1 and 9.3.
Wow.
Making it one of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded.
And the tsunami, it triggered the scale of the devastation, is hard to comprehend.
Absolutely. The tsunami waves reached heights of over 100 feet in some areas, causing widespread destruction and claiming the lives of over 230,000 people across 14 countries.
A stark reminder of the interconnectedness of our planet and the sheer power of nature.
Indeed. And the 2011 Chuchoku earthquake in Japan, which also registered a staggering 9.0, is another tragic reminder.
That one was terrifying, especially with the tsunami and the Fukushima nuclear disaster that followed.
It was a devastating event that highlighted the complex challenges of preparing for and responding to major earthquakes and their cascading effects.
Okay, so we've talked about the power of earthquakes, the science behind them, and some historical examples. But what about the cities and regions that are most vulnerable to these events? Is it just a matter of being close to fault lines?
Proximity to fault lines and tectonic plate boundaries is a major factor. Cities like Tokyo, San Francisco, Mexico City, Istanbul, Los Angeles, Kathmandu, Tehran, Valparaiso, Santiago, and Jakarta
Wow, that's a lot of major cities.
all sit in areas where tectonic plates are constantly interacting.
It's a bit unsettling to think about the millions of people who live in these high-risk areas.
It is, and it underscores the importance of preparedness, building codes that can withstand seismic activity, and early warning systems.
So let's talk about those risk zones. Are there specific regions that scientists have identified as being more likely to experience earthquakes?
Absolutely. While earthquakes can happen anywhere, certain regions are more prone to seismic activity
Yeah.
based on historical data and the movement of those tectonic plates.
Okay, so where are these earthquake hotspots located?
One of the most well-known is the Pacific coast of the USA, which includes cities like Seattle and Los Angeles. This region is vulnerable to large earthquakes due to fault lines like the San Andreas and the Cascadia subduction zone.
That's a lot of coastline at risk. What other areas should we be aware of?
The Mediterranean Asian seismic belt is another major hotspot stretching from Greece and Turkey all the way through Iran and into Asia, where tectonic activity is constantly reshaping the landscape.
And I'm guessing the Himalayan region is up there too.
You are.
Those mountains are a testament to the incredible forces at work beneath the surface.
You're absolutely right. The collision of the Indian and Eurasian plates makes the Himalayan region, including countries like India, Nepal, and Bhutan, one of the most seismically active in the world.
Okay, so we've covered the Pacific coast, the Mediterranean Asian belt, and the Himalayas. Where else should we be keeping an eye on?
We can't forget about the Andes mountain range, which runs down the western coast of South America through countries like Chile, Argentina, and Peru.
Yeah.
The Nazca Plate and the South American Plate are constantly pushing against each other there, which makes it ripe for powerful earthquakes.
So yet another region where those tectonic plates are colliding. What about the Indian Ocean region?
That's another area of significant concern. Tectonic movements in this region, which includes countries like Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and India, have caused some of the most devastating earthquakes and tsunamis in recorded history.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. Wherever those tectonic plates meet, we're in for a wild ride.
You've got it. And here's an interesting one, the New Madrid seismic zone.
Okay.
It's a historically active seismic zone
Wow.
that poses a potential earthquake risk, even though it's located in the central U.S.,
That's surprising.
far from any major plate boundaries.
So earthquakes really can happen anywhere. What about Central Asia?
Central Asia, including countries like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, is another region with significant seismic activity. The tectonic plate convergence in this area has caused some major earthquakes in the past.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. I'm starting to feel a little shaky just thinking about all these risk zones.
I understand, but remember, knowledge is power. Understanding where earthquakes are most likely to occur can help us prepare for them and minimize the risks.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive already, and it's clear that earthquakes are a powerful force of nature we can't ignore. But before we wrap up part 1 of this earthquake adventure, let's shift gears and talk about what to do when the ground starts shaking.
That's where the drop, cover, and hold on mantra comes in. It's the most important thing you can do to protect yourself during an earthquake.
I've heard that phrase before, but I'm not sure I fully understand what it means. Could you break it down for us?
Absolutely. First, drop to the ground before the earthquake knocks you over.
Okay, so get low. What next?
Next, cover your head and neck with your arms. And if possible, crawl under sturdy furniture like a table or desk.
So basically create a little protected cocoon.
Exactly. And finally, hold on to that furniture so you stay covered and move with it if it shifts during the shaking.
Okay, don't drop cover and hold on. Got it. But what if you're not near any sturdy furniture?
If there's no shelter nearby, try to get close to an interior wall and cover your head and neck with your arms.
So basically anything to protect those vital areas. What about if you're outside when an earthquake hits? What's the best course of action then?
If you're outdoors, try to move to an open area, away from buildings, trees, power lines, and anything else that could fall and injure you. Once you're in a clear spot, drop to the ground and cover your head and neck until the shaking stops.
Okay, that makes sense. Stay away from anything that could become a hazard. But what if you're driving when an earthquake strikes?
That can be tricky. If you're in a vehicle, pull over to a safe area away from overpasses, bridges, power lines, and trees. Stay inside your vehicle until the shaking stops.
So basically treat your car like a mobile shelter.
Exactly.
Right.
It's the safest place to be in that situation.
Wow. We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our earthquake deep dive, from tectonic plates and fault lines to historical earthquakes and safety tips. We've explored the science and impact of these incredible events.
It's been a fascinating journey so far, and there's still so much more to uncover.
That's right. Stay tuned for part 2 of our earthquake adventure, where we'll delve even deeper into the fascinating world of seismology. Welcome back to the Ultimate Titan channel for part 2 of our earthquake exploration.
I'm still reeling from all the incredible facts we unearthed in part 1, tectonic plates, fault lines, those mind-blowing historical earthquakes. It's amazing how much power lies beneath our feet.
Yeah, it really is. But I'm ready to dig even deeper into the world of earthquakes. What other seismic secrets are you ready to share?
Well, hold on tight because we're about to explore how scientists actually study these earth-shaking events. It's a fascinating blend of cutting-edge technology and good old-fashioned detective work.
So they're like earthquake detectives piecing together clues to understand these powerful events.
Exactly.
Sign me up. What tools do they use?
Their primary tool is the seismograph, an incredibly sensitive instrument that detects and records those seismic waves we talked about earlier. You can think of them as the ripples spreading through the earth during an earthquake.
So like a super sensitive microphone for the earth.
That's a great analogy. Seismographs are strategically placed all over the world, constantly listening for any tremors or shakes. When an earthquake happens, these instruments spring into action, recording the arrival time, amplitude, and frequency of those seismic waves.
It's like they're creating a fingerprint of the earthquake, right? Each one unique.
Precisely, and by analyzing these seismograms, scientists can determine the location, depth, and magnitude of the earthquake. They can even figure out what type of fault caused it.
That's incredible. They're decoding the language of the earth. What other techniques do they use to piece together this puzzle?
Well, GPS technology has revolutionized seismology by placing GPS receivers at strategic locations. Scientists can track the movement of the Earth's crust with incredible accuracy both before and after an earthquake.
So it's like having a network of tiny spies reporting back on the Earth's every move? I always knew the Earth was up to something.
You could say that, and by studying these movements, scientists can gain a better understanding of how stress accumulates along fault lines and how earthquakes are triggered.
That's amazing. It's like having a front row seat to the Earth's tectonic dance.
Yeah.
What about views from further out?
Well, there's also satellite imagery.
Right.
Satellites orbiting our planet can capture images of the Earth's surface before and after an earthquake, allowing scientists to see the extent of the damage and identify areas that have been most affected.
So it's like having an eye in the sky that can see the big picture. That's got to be incredibly useful in coordinating disaster relief efforts.
Absolutely. Satellite imagery is a crucial tool for disaster response and recovery, but there's still more scientists also utilize computer modeling to simulate earthquakes.
So they can create a virtual earthquake lab.
Exactly. They can tweak different factors like fault geometry and rock properties to see how these influence the propagation of seismic waves. This helps them understand the complex physics of earthquakes and improve their ability to predict ground shaking and potential damage in different areas.
It's incredible how scientists are using all of these different tools and techniques to unlock the secrets of earthquakes. But here's a question I've been wrestling with. If scientists can track the movement of tectonic plates and identify areas that are at risk, why can't they predict exactly when and where an earthquake will happen? It seems like we should be able to connect those dots.
That's the million-dollar question, and it's one that has baffled scientists for a long time. The Earth's crust is incredibly complex, and the processes that trigger earthquakes are still not fully understood.
So it's like trying to predict when a popcorn kernel will pop. You know it's going to happen, but you're never quite sure when.
That's a great analogy. We know that the kernel has the potential to pop when it gets hot enough, but we can't pinpoint the exact moment it will happen.
Okay, I get it. But there must be some patterns or indicators that scientists can look for, right?
There are, but it's like trying to solve a giant puzzle with missing pieces. Scientists are diligently studying fault lines, monitoring seismic activity, and looking for any subtle changes in the Earth's crust that might signal an impending earthquake.
So it's a constant game of detective work, but with incredibly high stakes. What are some of those changes they're looking for?
Well, they look for things like small changes in ground elevation variations in the chemical composition of groundwater, and even unusual animal behavior. Some researchers believe that animals can sense changes in the Earth's electromagnetic field before an earthquake.
That's fascinating. So they're trying to read the Earth's subtle signals, almost like a doctor reading a patient's vital signs.
Exactly. And while we haven't cracked the code of earthquake prediction, yet scientists are making progress every day, the more we understand about these complex processes, the closer we get to being able to forecast these events with greater accuracy.
That's encouraging to hear. But in the meantime, it sounds like being prepared is crucial. We've talked about the drop, cover, and hold on mantra, but what else can we do to prepare for an earthquake?
One of the most important things you can do is ensure your home is earthquake resistant.
So reinforcing walls, securing heavy furniture, that kind of thing.
Precisely. And don't forget to check your gas and water lines for potential leaks or damage. Those can turn into serious hazards during and after an earthquake.
Okay, so secure your home,
Yeah.
check your utilities. What else should we have on our earthquake preparedness checklist?
Having an emergency kit ready to go is essential. Think about the essentials: water, food, a first aid kit, flashlights, batteries, a whistle, a radio-warmed clothes, and copies of any important documents or medications you might need.
So everything you'd need to survive for a few days if the power goes out and you're stuck at home. Better safe than sorry.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the importance of communication. Talk to your family or roommates about what to do if an earthquake happens.
Like designating a meeting spot if we get separated, and making sure everyone knows how to contact each other.
Exactly. Discuss what to do if there's damage to your home or neighborhood. Having a plan in place can help reduce panic and confusion during an emergency.
So communication is key, both before and after an earthquake.
Absolutely. And don't forget to practice your earthquake drills regularly. The more familiar you are with the drop, cover, and hold on procedure, the more likely you are to react quickly and safely when the shaking starts.
Okay, secure your home pack and emergency kit. Have a plan. Practice your drills. It sounds like being prepared for an earthquake is all about taking those small practical steps that can make a big difference in an emergency.
It's all about empowering ourselves and our communities to be as resilient as possible in the face of these unpredictable events.
Well said. I'm feeling a lot more prepared now, but I have a feeling this earthquake adventure isn't over yet, is it?
You're right about that. We've got one more part to go.
Stay tuned, Titans. In part 3, we're going to explore some truly mind-boggling facts about earthquakes that will leave you in awe of the power of nature. Welcome back, Titans, for the final act of our earthquake exploration.
We've journeyed to the heart of the earth, unraveled the science behind these tremors,
And even learned how to stay safe when the ground starts rocking and rolling.
and now get ready to have your minds blown wide open as we reveal some of the most incredible jaw-dropping facts about earthquakes.
I'm ready to be amazed.
You'll never look at our planet the same way again.
Okay, hit me with your best shot. What's the most mind-boggling earthquake fact you've got up your sleeve?
Well, prepare to be astonished. The Earth experiences millions of earthquakes every single year.
Millions? Seriously? But we only hear about a tiny fraction of those on the news. What's going on with all those hidden tremors?
Most of them are so small that they're barely noticeable, like tiny whispers beneath our feet. They're happening all the time, constantly reminding us that our planet is a dynamic, ever-evolving system.
Wow, that's wild. It's like the Earth has its own hidden rhythm, a constant seismic heartbeat.
Exactly. And speaking of heartbeats, did you know that the largest earthquake ever recorded was a colossal 9.5 on the moment magnitude scale?
9.5? That's practically off the charts. Where on Earth did that megaquake happen?
It struck off the coast of Chile back in 1960, releasing an unfathomable amount of energy.
Wow.
The ground shook for an incredible 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
And the resulting tsunami wreaked havoc across the Pacific Ocean, reaching as far as Hawaii, Japan, and the Philippines.
That's just unimaginable. It really puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It reminds us that as much as we try to control our environment, there are forces at play far beyond our comprehension. But here's another fact that might surprise you. Earthquakes can actually make the Earth spin faster.
Hold on. Earthquakes can actually change the Earth's rotation? Are you serious?
I wouldn't joke about something like that. It's true. When a massive earthquake shifts the Earth's mass distribution, it can slightly alter the planet's rotational speed, similar to a figure skater spinning faster when they pull their arms in.
That's mind-blowing. So every time there's a major earthquake, we're all technically spinning through space a tiny bit faster.
That's right. It's a subtle effect, but it highlights the incredible interconnectedness of our planet's systems. Everything is connected from the smallest tremor to the Earth's rotation itself. But that's not all. Earthquakes can also create mountains.
Wait, what? I thought mountains were formed over millions of years by tectonic plates colliding. How do earthquakes fit into that picture?
You're right that slow, steady collision is the main driving force. But earthquakes can give mountain formation a little extra oomph.
Okay.
When those plates collide and trigger earthquakes, the immense pressure can cause the Earth's crust to fold and buckle even more dramatically, pushing up those towering mountain ranges we see today.
So it's like earthquakes are the Earth's sculpting tools, shaping the landscape with each powerful tremor.
Exactly. They're constantly reshaping our planet, both in subtle and dramatic ways.
Okay, so earthquakes can make the Earth spin faster, create mountains, and happen millions of times a year. What other amazing feats can these tremors pull off? Is there anything they can't do?
Well, how about this? Earthquakes can trigger volcanic eruptions.
Whoa, seriously, that sounds like a double dose of natural disaster. What's the connection there?
It all comes down to pressure. The shaking and shifting of the Earth's crust during an earthquake can disturb underground magma chambers, causing that molten rock to rise and erupt from volcanoes.
So it's like the earthquake gives the volcano a little nudge, saying, hey, Time to wake up and show the world what you've got.
That's a great way to put it. It's a reminder that all of these natural forces are intertwined in complex and often unpredictable ways.
I'm starting to think we should be both in awe of and a little bit afraid of earthquakes. They're incredibly powerful and influential.
They certainly command respect, but fear shouldn't be the main takeaway here. The most important thing to remember is that earthquakes are a natural part of our planet's evolution. They've been shaping the Earth for billions of years, and they'll continue to do so long after we're gone.
That's a humbling thought. It really puts things in perspective.
It does, doesn't it? But it's also a reminder that we need to respect the power of nature and learn to live in harmony with these forces, not in fear of them.
Beautifully said on that note. A huge thank you to you, our incredible expert, for taking us on this incredible journey into the world of earthquakes.
The pleasure was all mine. I always love sharing my passion for this amazing planet.
And to all you Titans out there, thank you for joining us on this epic earthquake extravaganza. We hope you've learned something new, gained a deeper appreciation for the power of nature, and maybe even felt a few tremors of excitement along the way. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more awesome deep dives, and leave a comment below telling us what surprised you the most about earthquakes. Until next time, Titans, stay curious, stay safe, and keep exploring the wonders of our world.